You may have heard the saying that children are a blessing, but what happens when the opposite is true? What happens when children commit such heinous acts that they shatter the soul of their parents and everyone around them? Here are 5 cases of children who killed their own parents. 1. Alex and Derek King. Alex and Derek King were 2 brothers who lived in Pensacola, Florida, with their father, Terry King. Alex was 12 and Derek was 13 at the time of the crime. The brothers had a troubled relationship with their father, who was strict and abusive. They also had a history of running away from home and getting involved with drugs and crime. One of the people they befriended was Rick Chavez, a 40-year-old convicted child molester who lived in a nearby trailer park. Chavez became a mentor and a father figure to the boys, and also engaged in sexual relations with Alex. Chavez manipulated the boys into hating their father and convinced them that they would be better off living with him. He also suggested that they should kill their father and offered to help them with the plan. On November 26, 2001, the brothers carried out the murder plot. While their father was asleep on the couch, Derek struck him several times on the head with an aluminum baseball bat, killing him instantly. The next day, the police found the charred remains of Terry King and traced the boys. They were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Chavez was also arrested and charged with accessory after the fact and other crimes. Initially, the brothers faced the possibility of life imprisonment or even death, but they later accepted a plea deal that reduced their charges to third-degree murder and arson. Alex was sentenced to 7 years in prison, and Derek to 8 years, while Chavez will be eligible for parole in 2028. Number 2. Lowell Lee Andrews. Lowell Lee Andrews was an 18-year-old college student who lived in Wolcott, Kansas, with his parents and his 17-year-old sister. He was described as a quiet and studious young man who had no history of violence or mental illness. However, he had a dark and twisted side that he kept hidden from everyone. He was obsessed with crime and violence and idolized notorious killers like Charles Manson and Richard Speck. He also fantasized about killing his own family and becoming a famous criminal. He decided to turn his fantasy into reality. It was Thanksgiving weekend in 1958, and he had returned home from college for the holiday. He waited until his family was watching television in the living room, and then calmly walked in with a rifle and a revolver. Without saying a word, he shot his father, William, in the head, killing him instantly. He then shot his mother, Opal, in the chest, and his sister, Jenny, in the stomach. He then drove to his girlfriend's house and took her to a movie, acting as if nothing had happened. After coming back, he called the police himself, reporting about the death of his family. The police arrived and discovered the gruesome scene. They then arrested Andrews and charged him with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Andrews confessed to the killings and showed no remorse or emotion. He told the police that he had planned the murders for weeks and that he wanted to be famous. He also said that he had no reason to kill his family, other than that they were there. He was tried and convicted of the murders and sentenced to death by hanging. He appealed his sentence and claimed that he was insane at the time of the crime, but his appeal was denied. Finally, he was executed in November 1962. Number 3. David Braum. David Braum was a 16-year-old high school student who lived in Rochester, Minnesota, with his parents and his 3 siblings. He was a bright and talented young man who excelled in academics, music, and sports. However, he had a troubled relationship with his father, Bernard, who was strict and authoritarian. He also suffered from depression and had suicidal thoughts. He was fascinated by death and violence and listened to heavy metal music, especially the band Slayer. In February 1988, he snapped and killed his entire family. He used an axe to hack his father, mother, brother, and sister to death. He then dragged their bodies to the basement and covered them with a blanket. He then went to school and acted as if nothing had happened. He even bragged with his friends about killing his family. The police then quickly found David at a nearby pizza parlor and arrested him. He confessed to the murders and said that he had an argument with his father over his music and his hair the night before, and that he decided to kill him. He then killed the rest of his family because he did not want them to live without their father. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and tried as an adult. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury rejected his defense. He was convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison without parole. 4. Jasmine Richardson. Jasmine Richardson was a 12-year-old girl who lived in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada, with her parents and her 8-year-old brother. She was a cheerful and friendly girl who loved animals and music. She was also a good student who got along well with her teachers and classmates. However, she had a rebellious streak and was drawn to the goth subculture. She dyed her hair black, wore dark makeup and clothes, and listened to bands like Marilyn Manson and Cradle of Filth. She also developed a fascination with vampires, werewolves, and the occult. She met Jeremy Steinke, a 23-year-old man who shared her interests, on a social networking site. They soon became romantically involved and planned to run away together. Steinke claimed that he was a 300-year-old werewolf and that he could turn Jasmine into one. He also said that he hated her parents and that they deserved to die. In April 2006, they carried out their plan to kill Jasmine's family. Steinke broke into Richardson's home and stabbed Mark and Deborah to death in their bedroom. He then went downstairs and encountered Jasmine's brother Jacob, who pleaded for his life. Steinke ignored him and stabbed him as well. They both then fled the scene. However, their plan was foiled when the police found the bodies of Jasmine's family and identified them as the suspects. They were arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Jasmine was sentenced to 10 years in prison, the maximum penalty for a youth offender. She was also ordered to undergo psychological counseling and to have no contact with Steinke. Steinke was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Jasmine was released 4 years after her sentence started. 5. Bradley Davis. Bradley Davis was a 35-year-old man who lived in McLeod, Oklahoma, with his stepfather, Denver St. Clair. He had a strained relationship with his stepfather, who was abusive and alcoholic. He also blamed him for the death of his mother, who had died of cancer a few years earlier. On December 21, 2013, he had a heated argument with his stepfather, who had insulted his mother and threatened to shoot him. He then snapped and attacked his stepfather. He punched him several times and knocked him unconscious. He then grabbed his stepfather's underwear and pulled it over his head, giving him an atomic wedgie. He said he did this as a way of humiliating St. Clair and making him stop his insults. He did not intend to kill him. He said he did not realize that St. Clair was in mortal danger until it was too late. Davis was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, a lesser charge than murder, and hoped for a lenient sentence. But the prosecution argued that Davis had acted with malice and that he had shown no remorse for his actions. The judge then sentenced Davis to 30 years in prison, which is the maximum penalty for manslaughter. So, which case do you think was the most disturbing one? Do you think these children deserve their sentences? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe for more content.